Sorry, I wasn't listening to you. Or I was, but I was mostly thinking about my thing. Flight 815 crash landed, but where? There's weird jungle noises
and a polar bear. What the fuck is going on over there?
Helen
and Alex
will guide you through. If you've seen Lost 20 times,
or if you're brand new,
welcome to our show. It's
Dharma Fish Biscuits. Hello and welcome to Dharma Fish Biscuits, your new favourite Lost podcast.
We're your hosts, Helen and Alex. We're going episode by episode, spoiler-free, bringing you all the hot takes no one ever asked for.
We are on Instagram at Dharma Fish Biscuits Pod. We are also on TikTok at Dharma Fish Biscuits. Or you can get in touch with us and email us at dharmafishbiscuitspod@gmail.com.
We also have a free Patreon, which you can find at patreon.com/dharmafishbiscuits. There you will find some jingles, some bonus materials, outtakes, a few behind-the-scenes posts, and of course, the spoilery version of the show.
Yes, if you have never seen the show before, don't worry, this podcast is spoiler-free, but sometimes we do talk about spoilers amongst ourselves, which get edited out, but on Patreon you can find an uncensored version, including where we discuss spoilers.
Instead of going beat by beat, we aim to focus our discussion on the character the episode centres around, first in flashbacks, then on the island. Then we'll circle back to what we missed, any B-plots, C-plots, and other miscellany.
This week, we have our second Sawyer episode, Season 1, Episode 16, Outlaws.
Overall thoughts on the episode. This is the one where Sawyer has a grudge match with a boar, and I just found it to be a delight. I mean, not so much the flashback stuff, but the on-island stuff. I laughed out loud watching this episode, which is quite a rarity for Lost.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't remember this episode at all before we watched it, other than like, oh yeah, I know at some point in season 1 Sawyer has a thing with a boar, and I know he goes to Australia. But when I watched it, especially the second time watching it, I was like, wow, I loved this. And I loved the flashbacks. Mostly, I loved the way it ties lots of things together thematically in a way that last week I was like, oh, this feels to me like they just sort of shoehorned in something random.
Yeah.
Then at the end, we're like, oh, let's tie it back to Charlie. This time it felt a lot more intentional. And then, like you say, the on-island stuff was genuinely very funny, and I laughed out loud, and it was good that these things were married together. So,
good job, Lost.
Great.
Good episode.
Loved it.
Let's start with the flashback, shall we?
Let's start with the flashbacks. I just want to say, in the flashbacks, two very exciting guest stars for me. We've got
Thatcher Grey.
We've got Thatcher Grey from Grey's Anatomy, and we've got Agent Doggett from the X-Files. And I don't know if you've seen more of the X-Files than the EX-Files has covered.
No, I've only seen the first 2 seasons. Is it Hibbs? Because he looks X-Files-y.
It is Agent Hibbs. Agent Hibbs? I don't...
He's certainly not an agent here.
Yes, it is Hibbs. He is quite a prominent character in later episodes of the X-Files.
Cool.
So I was like, wow. And this episode is written by Drew Goddard, who's a massive Buffy guy. So I was like, wow, this episode for me is like all the degrees of separation.
The Alex Venn diagram in one episode.
Absolutely incredible. Thank you, Lost. So the flashback. We start with an absolutely harrowing flashback. I thought this was so like really well done, but also really like traumatic. So we hear Sawyer's dad banging on the door outside, and his mother comes in, tells him to hide under the bed, and says, oh, he won't know you're here, he'll think you're at your grandparents', and like pulls the cover over him. Then she goes outside. We hear a gunshot. A body falls to the floor. And then the door swings open, and it's shot from underneath the bed, so like from Sawyer's point of view. And it almost was like silly, the way like the door swang open like the barn door, and the cowboy boots come in, and there's this like twangy guitar. And I was like, it's almost silly and ridiculous, but it's so sort of traumatic considering that we're seeing from Sawyer's perspective. It's the fact that he sits on the bed and shoots himself, and all I could think was like, wow, Sawyer is trapped under this bed.
Everything about it
it's just
is
so
horrible,
harrowing and awful.
I also had a reflection watching it again, because I mean, this is something we know about Sawyer, that this is his backstory. It came up in his previous episode.
Yeah.
So that wasn't new, but I did think the scene gave us new information in the way that his mum talks to him and everything that happens, where, you know, the dad is locked out of the house. He has to break down the door to get in. We hear that happening. And that, putting that context in the fact that, like, what we know has happened between them is that she has had an affair with the con man.
Yeah.
The con man has taken all the husband's money. And so that, and then I was like, okay, but he's the one who's locked out, and he's kind of coming and threatening her. The way that that Sawyer's mum, Brooke, I believe her name is.
Oh, well done.
Tells him to hide and says he won't know you're here. He'll think you're at your grandparents'. I was like, all of this points to like, she is afraid of violence from her husband. This must have happened before. Like, for her to even have the thought of, like, you're gonna have to hide because otherwise something bad will happen to you. Like, to me, that says that she is expecting violence from him, even though she's shocked when she sees that he has a gun and says, what are you doing with a gun? I think that tells us a lot more than... It tells us a lot more in the subtext than it does in the text, and I found that quite interesting, because there's not really something that will get further explored about Sawyer.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that, but I think you are definitely right.
Sad times, real grim, and we'll see the end bit of that scene a few more times, because apparently it's haunting Sawyer's nightmares.
Yes, I will say the second time we see it,
it's a boar.
was quite stupid and did make me laugh. Anyway, so then we flash back to older Sawyer, adult Sawyer. Agent Doggett from the X-Files is there and gives him some information that he'll be interested in. And he says, this will make us even for the Tampa job. And I was like, what is the Tampa job? I was like, have I forgotten about this? I then looked it up, and on Lostpedia, the Tampa job just says, who knows what that means? But on a tangent, what else was on the Lostpedia page was Matthew Fox auditioned for Sawyer, and during his audition for Sawyer, he had to read a script that was about a con they ran in Florida. And they were like, maybe this is the Tampa job. And I read it, and watching Matthew Fox trying to play Sawyer was so bad. He brings his Jack energy, and he's so intense in what he's saying.
Worst of both worlds.
Yeah. And it really made me realise how good Josh Holloway is, and like, it works because he's sort of so smooth and sleek, and you can really buy him as a con man from how he like schmoozes people and wins them over. Whereas watching Matthew Fox do it and be really like intense, and you have to listen to me about this, it's just like, this does not work at all.
I have to agree. A Jack version of Sawyer. Whew, I don't want to... I don't need that. Terrible stuff. Anyway, yes, like you say, we have Sawyer in his con man days. He's in the midst of doing his regular romance con when he's taking a girl back to his hotel room, and oops, there's a guy in the shadows, and it's Hibbs, aka the one guy from the X-Files. And so this guy's like, oh, I've got the one thing that will make everything right between us. It's the information that you need for the grudge you've been carrying your whole life. The guy who ruined your life, I can tell you who he is and where he is.
Yeah, he's in Sydney, Australia.
Obviously, by the end of the episode, we know that this was a ruse. This was false information, and it was just because the guy owed Hibbs money. And when I watched this episode the first time, I wasn't paying super duper close attention, and I kind of thought, like, isn't it really obvious that, you know, this is going to turn out to be the wrong guy, because that's kind of like a TV trope. But when I watched it the second time, I was like, actually, they do quite a good job of selling it. The way that he, you know, Sawyer sees Hibbs and is like, I thought I told you I would kill you if I ever saw you again. And the way Hibbs is like, but I have the one piece of information that's going to be worth so much to you, that, like, it was a real big risk on Hibbs's part to do this.
Yeah.
They do also give the exposition to explain why Thatcher Gray, even though he's a con man, is like living out in the middle of nowhere in Australia with a shrimp truck, and it's because he was an alcoholic and a gambler and blah, blah, blah. So then Sawyer goes out to the aforementioned shrimp truck, and
he does.
He gets a gun on the way there. shout out to Australia's gun laws. The guy's like, I must inform you, it is against the law to carry a gun in Australia. This is important for Americans to understand.
I mean, but also, we know we're in Australia because they've superimposed the Sydney Opera House there. Joining the ranks of, we're in London, here is Tower Bridge.
Yeah, really dumbing it down for us there.
Duckett asks him what his name is, and this is the first time we know Sawyer's name is James.
Yes.
Welcome to the show, James.
And that is his real name. In case you're a first time watcher and thinking, oh, that might just as well be
it's another Annie situation.
Yeah, classic Annie. I did think they sold it quite nicely the way that they made it clear that Sawyer at this point has never killed anyone. He's a con man, but he's not a murderer.
Yeah, this is where it started to sort of come into play. So obviously we'll get to what's happened on the island later, but I really loved the fact that we've got a flashback about Sawyer, and Sawyer has a plotline on the island, but also the flashback to me speaks more to Charlie's experiences on the island, and it's about the idea of, we're like really getting into something we talked about last week, which is this idea of killing and what it takes to kill someone and what that does to you. And I do really love the fact that we haven't just left it with Charlie and be like, well, never mind. And I think Sawyer's a really interesting character to examine this through, because who we see on the island does seem like someone who would be, he's so like cocksure and confident in himself that you'd really think, and like he killed the marshal and he killed a polar bear, but he doesn't seem like someone who's going to have
He doesn't hesitate with a gun in his hand, it would seem.
No, not at all. Yeah. So it's really interesting to then see, like you say, when he's face to face with the man that he wants to kill, his hand is like shaking over the gun.
And he initially walks away, needs a bit more time to think about it, pulls up into a bar, and who does he meet but Jack's dad, Christian Shepherd.
Oh, yeah.
Christian Shepherd's role in Sawyer's life, it will turn out, is to be the guy who says, no, you should actually totally go murder that guy, keeping the legacy alive.
Yes. First of all, some more hell, purgatory, afterlife type chat.
We're on our purgatory bullshit again. We're on our purgatory bullshit again. They were never dead the entire time, but we definitely wanted to make you think they were back then. Yes, they're really on their purgatory bullshit with him saying, we're in hell, huh?
Yeah, we're all suffering. Some people are supposed to suffer. It's fate.
I really like that's why the Red Sox will never win the World Series thing that Christian says and then Jack says later. And he's like, oh, it's something my dad used to say. I think that's great in the way that it ties the two stories together and it gives Sawyer the moment to realise that he met Jack's dad. I don't think I really buy it as a way of saying, oh, some people were just born to suffer and I was just born to suffer. That's why everyone thinks I'm a dickhead, not because I'm actually a dickhead. Like, there was a little bit too much kind of like hard work trying to make that all make sense. But I like the function that it served in the story.
I agree. I like the concept. I like the idea that there's this real weird sort of phrase that Jack's dad says and it's passed on to Jack and that's how Sawyer makes the connection. That's all good. And I even like the idea of it being, that's why the Red Sox will never win the damn series. But I'm like, I really didn't understand what the phrase actually means and how it tied in. And then Jack sort of explains it at the end and is saying that it's all fate and it's a way to avoid owning up to anything. It's just things are out of our hands. I'm like, I guess that might be sort of what it means, but I don't know. It doesn't really make sense to me. This was the second time that really made me appreciate the flashbacks. I love the fact that we got an interlinked flashback with a different character, but also I love that it really does a good job of tying together different strands of the show. So we're now tying we're tying Sawyer's story into Jack's story, which is already, like, Sawyer's already talked to Charlie, and it's all together. And that it's all just about men not owning their feelings and processing their feelings. And like, the whole point is Christian is saying to him, my son thinks I hate him for what he did, but actually I'm really grateful for what he did. I'm proud of what he did. And I could pick up that phone and I could tell him that I'm grateful and I'm proud of him, but I'm too weak. So I was saying the same thing and thinking that, like, he's not processing.
I could pick up this gun, go back to that shrimp truck and shoot the guy in the chest. but I'm too weak. Or, I mean, that's what he takes away from the conversation. Christian's like, oh, if you don't want to end up like me, go do the thing that will ease your suffering. And so it's like, got it, murder a guy.
So this is what's ironic, because I think what we're sort of like thematically supposed to take away is that the idea is Sawyer's not like processing his grief around his parents, so he's focusing that on revenge over the man and not processing it to be able to actually move past it. But by Christian saying, don't be like me, process your things, you're right, Sawyer takes that as, I must process it by doing the thing, and that will help me. But then it's also on the island, where he's not processing anything that's happened to him on the island, and instead he's just focusing on the boar. Meanwhile, we've got Charlie, who doesn't want to, like, actually think and process his thoughts about Ethan, and is just like, I can't deal with anyone or talk to anyone. And I just I feel like it did such a fantastic job of tying things together, which is what you need for a show that is so big and sprawling and has such an ensemble cast. You do need these things that weave them together into one thing to actually make it feel cohesive. And in conclusion, that this flashback cemented why I thought this episode was actually really great. And I think maybe it has become one of my favourites of season 1. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
To Alex's TED Talk. I want to just call out that in Christian's line to Sawyer, he does say, one simple phone call and I could fix everything. I was like, oh, what's that? You hung up on the idea of fixing things? Is that do we need to remember that for the future? Inherited baggage. So Sawyer goes back to the shrimp truck with a single-minded mission to
he's going to fix himself by killing the man. Shoot
Thatcher Grey in the chest, not the heart, so that he has enough time to bleed out while talking to him. And I was like, this is a good reveal, actually. The way that he shouts out Sawyer, Thatcher Grey looks at him because obviously someone has shouted something, so he's going to turn around. Sawyer shoots him and starts reading the letter to him that starts, Dear Mr. Sawyer, and he gets that far, and Thatcher Grey is like, who? What the fuck are you talking about? And I thought that performance was so good. The combination of, like, absolute bewilderment, bleeding to death, some level of, like, compassion for the man who has just shot him, that he can see that, like, oh, you have no idea what you're doing. You've been manipulated. And also Sawyer's initial reaction when he realizes the mistake he's made. That's also a great performance. Josh Holloway looks absolutely destroyed and distraught. Just a lovely scene from the both of them.
Yeah, 10 out of 10 all round. And then as he's dying, he says, it'll come back around.
Yeah, which again, it wasn't said in a way of like, oh, you killed me, but you'll get yours. It was almost like a peaceful letting go of life, just as in almost a Zen thing of being like, well, this was the end for me, but it'll come back around. And I think you could read that into that in different ways, but you could also read it into it to meaning, I'll be coming back around.
I'll be reincarnated as a boar
on the island.
And that is all. Is that all the flashbacks?
That's all.
Okay, let's go to Boar Town.
Oh, let's jump back to the present. Back to the island.
So Sawyer wakes up from the aforementioned flashback/dream and finds a boar going through his stuff. And he turns the light on, because if there's a boar in your tent, what are you going to do? Shine a light in its face. That'll make things much better.
Well, you have to see what it is. He didn't know it was a boar until he could see it was a boar. Might have been Jack rustling around. And he kind of tries to hit the boar with a big stick or pipe or something, but the boar simply runs off and brings his tarpaulin with him. Is the boar female or male? Because I always think when it gets to that scene where Sawyer holds up the little boar piglet, I'm always like, oh, the boar must be a mother and she's gonna get pissed off by this, but that's never established. In my headcanon, she's female.
Either when they find the wallow or when he picks up the piglet, he says, Daddy's got to be around here somewhere.
Yeah, but he hasn't, like, sexed the boar, has he? He hasn't been able to judge whether the boar has testicles or whatever.
Do boars have testicles? I don't need to. But also, they call it he, don't they?
Yeah, yeah, but
every time
I
they're
mean,
talking about it.
my point is, how do they know it's a boy? They're just being sexist and assuming
Is it
that
because
it's
it has
a male.
tusks? Do female boars have tusks?
Oh, you might be onto something there. Delete all this. But this boar does not have tusks, right?
Oh, female boars do have tusks anyway. So
Oh, there you go.
I guess that wouldn't help.
I'm
at all.
going to be referring to the boar as she, her from now on. You do what you like. In order to try and get his tarpaulin back, Sawyer dashes off into the forest where he hears whispers.
He hears the whispers. He hears whispers that culminate in saying, "It'll come back around."
And also how it's Thatcher Grey a boar. Because, I mean, we've already had Christian Shepherd on the island, despite the fact he was dead. So I would almost have liked it more if we got Thatcher Grey on the island, despite the fact he was dead. But now we have yet another supernatural strand to pull on, which is like, or the dead people that you have baggage with from your life might show up on the island in the form of a reincarnated animal.
Okay, so you are reading it as the boar is Thatcher.
The boar represents Thatcher. It doesn't have to be the case that it is supernaturally Thatcher Grey. And
Yeah,
sorry, I know his name's Frank, but we will be calling him Thatcher Grey throughout.
I did not get that. I obviously picked up that in Locke's story, he's very heavily implying that, like, maybe it's something like this, and Sawyer is thinking, like, oh, maybe it is my karmic justice for killing this man.
Sawyer, the way it turns out, he looks that boar in the eye. He says to the boar, psychically, I will let you be free. And that is a way for him to resolve the guilt that he feels about killing Thatcher Grey. It almost doesn't matter whether the boar is reincarnated Thatcher Grey or not. The boar fills that role in Sawyer's life at this time.
Okay, I agree with you there. But he does hear whispers that are the thing that Thatcher Grey whispered to him.
You know what? When he heard the whispers and he goes to Saeed, I was like, yeah, what did Saeed hear when he heard the whispers? I think we only saw him hearing...
Yeah, I wasn't particularly enthralled with Saeed's encounters with the whispers, because I thought that, you're right, they were very just like... And much the same as the monster in the pilot, it was sort of mixed in with score music, so it was sort of hard to actually be like, oh, there is some mysterious whispering happening here, versus, oh, here's a spooky soundtrack that Michael Giacchino has created for this television show.
Sawyer and Saeed, best frenemies. I love their dynamic together. They're just a delight.
This was an incredible scene.
The way that when Sawyer comes up to him, and I want to point out, he addresses him as Saeed. For the first and possibly only time, they have their little exchange about the tarpaulin, and then as Saeed starts to walk away, so he goes, Saeed, and then asks about the whispers.
Yes.
And I was like, oh,
you're correct. And
I know.
So I think what this is growth for Sawyer. And it's something we have actually seen before, which is that he will mock people and he'll give them silly nicknames. But actually, when it comes down to serious business, he is like, okay, I don't actually have an issue with you and we really need to find out what this problem is.
I think that if he uses someone's real name in that way, it's actually a showing of vulnerability. It's a moment of like, I just need to be serious for one moment because I'm actually feeling something about this.
Yeah, it's Sawyer putting aside his facade of like joking and insulting and instead being like,
This is real. Just be real for a second here because this is real.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then they have this exchange about he wants to know what Saeed actually heard. Saeed obviously picks up on like, oh, did you hear something? What did you hear? And that's when the facade goes back up again and Sawyer's like, no, I won't be sharing any personal information here. Bye-bye. Slow-mo walk off with his hair flopping around.
I think that's also because when he asks Saeed what he heard, Saeed's like, I was not a well man. I was not a well man. I don't know what I heard. I was obviously just making things up. Why? What did you hear? And that's when Sawyer's well, if you're
He's
not
like,
gonna...
well, you're not going to share, I'm not going to share. But it was also an opening of a door where Sawyer could have opened up a little bit and said, oh, I heard something meaningful from my life off the island. Whatevs.
Yeah. I do also just want to say, the exchange between them is incredibly funny when Sawyer's like, he took my tarp, and Saeed says, perhaps he wanted to go camping.
Yeah, the way that
Laughed out
Saeed is so visibly amused throughout the whole sequence is just Chef's kiss lover, an absolute delight.
And Sawyer
More
saying,
of this,
"Are you enjoying yourself?" And he says, "Yes."
Yes.
So we go and see Jack and Kate, and they are putting Jack's putting the guns away.
Worst gun hiding place ever.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, here's a rock. We'll put them under this overhang of rock and put some grass over it. No one will ever find these guns.
She pulls the thing out of her gun, unloads it, I guess, and gives it back to him and says, "Thanks for the loaner." But what is she talking about? Because Sawyer gave her the gun. Jack famously didn't want to give her the gun. So when did he loan her a gun that she's giving back to him?
That's a very good point.
Thank you. But anyway, Jack tells her that he's happy to go along with her story, and everyone's just going to assume the Marshal was travelling alone to protect them from terrorists.
Yeah, I wish we had like a 9/11 just recently happened jingle, because there's quite a lot of times that I would be wanting to play it. 9/11 just happened a few years ago. That goes quite a long way to explain a bunch of stuff on this show. I did find it rather how they're talking. Kate's like, I can get the gun off of Sawyer, and Jack's like, oh, I don't know, last time you tried to get something off him, you made out with him and then didn't even get the thing you were supposed to get. And then Kate says, yeah, but that was only because torturing him didn't work. And they both laugh. I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't think we're at the point where we're just joking about torture.
Yeah. Good. Some old japes in our very recent history.
Personally, I'm not there.
Okay, so anyway, then we catch up with Sawyer again.
Oh, sure. He has another run-in with Milady.
He is going through the jungle again. He finds his tarp. Then the boar comes towards him, and he throws the tarp aside. But the boar's like, I don't really care about the tarp. I just want you.
I'm coming for you. And that's the bit where he ends up in the mud, of course.
It is, and we get our first son of a bitch of the episode. Ring that son of a bitch counter.
Son of a bitch, son of a bitch, son of a bitch, son of a bitch. Your mum might be quite nice, but you're a son of a bitch.
And then we get to Kate talking to Sawyer.
Yeah, Kate is also very amused by this whole situation. It's a lovely little scene between the two of them.
Yeah. I think it's quite fun that Sawyer, who so far is a character that is sort of serious / insulting / above everything, he gets this sort of comedy episode that involves a lot of silliness, and everyone who interacts with him on the island is like, this is a silly plot you are having.
Yeah, it's like, oh, good. Thanks for being the light relief, Sawyer.
Yeah. Also, Kate is leaning over what I assume is the side of the plane that's got the little windows, which I assume means that Sawyer put that up as like the wall of his little tent. So he gave himself a room with a view so he could look out the little aeroplane window and look out at the beach.
He's thought this through.
Very
Delightful.
nice.
When he's relating to Kate what happened in his encounter with the boar, he says, among other things, that after it made him drop the tarp, it ran off into the jungle like a coward, which I found very amusing. And then when she tries to say something about, like, how to hunt it, he says, thank you, boar expert. And I was like, oh, what a great new nickname to add to the roster.
Well, he's got a lot on his mind this week, Helen. He's not at the top of his nickname game.
It was just a great, entertaining scene all round.
Yeah. So anyway, he goes off into the jungle, and then Kate follows him and is like, you've been tracking literally everything, including Boone, yourself. Everything apart from the boar.
Yeah, Kate is winning smug bitch of the episode. She is so happy to just be able to be there and be like, you suck at this. I could help you with this.
Yeah. So she bargains with him and tells him that she wants carte blanche in exchange for helping him track the boar.
It's carte blanche, by the way. It's French.
I'm so sorry.
My reflection on this scene was that, like, I think she kind of loves the game that is between her and Sawyer.
Yeah.
I also think that if she had said to him, I'll help you, but I want the gun, he probably would have said no. And somehow it was easier for him to say yes to carte blanche, where you can have whatever you want at any time you need it, because that's creates stakes in a different way for him, kind of fun stakes. If it was just like, oh, Jack told me to come and get the gun, so I'm here trying to get the gun, he would be like, well, I'm not going to help boring Jack get what he wants.
Boring. Anyway, it's nighttime. They're at a campfire.
They're playing I Have Never, or if you prefer, Never Have I Ever.
Or I Never.
Oh yeah, they actually call it I Never.
Yeah. He's drinking some liquor, and I'm sort of surprised. So this is apparently days 29 to 31. So it's been a month since they crashed now. I'm surprised there's liquor left.
There's still bottles left, and especially the way they keep being able to fill themselves back up after he drinks from them.
It's incredible. I think Sawyer emptied that bottle about 3 times during this game.
They go through a bunch of different things during their game of I Never. I did find it a little bit unlikely that Kate has never worn pink. She has a whole life as a con woman in her past. Surely wearing pink would come up.
She's literally wearing purple, which is a short hop, skip, and a jump from pink. I think that was just a very 2004 subtle no homo joke.
Metrosexuality. We're back
Exactly.
with Metro Jack or whatever his nickname was.
But he drinks and Kate laughs at the fact that he has worn
I
pink.
knew it. I support Sawyer's choices. I don't support his choice to vote Republican, which he also reveals during this game.
I mean,
Kate doesn't vote at all.
Are we surprised though?
No, I mean, you're right. Of course it wouldn't be consistent with his character to vote Democrat. I just was like, yeah, annoying.
Yeah, to be fair, he doesn't actually say he voted Republican. He just says, I never voted Democrat. So maybe he's a real green boy.
Let's move on. He says, I've never been in love, and then he follows up with, I've never been married, to which she
drinks.
She does her little drink, but it's very much like she gives him a little look and a little quick sip and goes, it didn't last. And then suddenly the stakes are raised considerably.
Because the first thing is she says, I never blamed a boar for all my problems, which is what sort of ups the stakes from teasing, but it's very personal about you. So then he ups it even more by saying,
I never only pretended to care about getting the gun back in order to spend time with the only other person on this island who just don't belong. And she's like, okay, fucking read me to filth. And then she's like, well, I never fucking carried around a letter for 20 years because of all my baggage. And that's when he's like, oh, we're doing this, are we?
And then, I never killed a man.
And they both drank.
And
now suddenly it's not so fun anymore.
No.
We're halfway through the podcast. We talk a lot, we know. Why not take this time to write a review? It helps more people find the show. Or pop us a little email, or simply tell a friend. We're gonna need some listeners if we're to make it from the pilot to the end. I know that this is a serious topic about how they both killed a man, but for some reason it was at this point I wrote in my notes, Kate, put your hair up challenge. I think this actually refers more to when they wake up the day after, because after their thrilling end to I Have Never, they both decide, let's just go to sleep. They wake up, Sawyer's had his nightmare again. The campsite has been ransacked by Her Majesty the Boar, but Kate's stuff is all fine, only Sawyer's has been messed up. And this was the point when I was like, okay, you've been out in the jungle, you've been asleep, you're in doing quite sort of physically exerting activity. Why would you not have put your hair up at any point of this? Your hair is just down. It's going to be causing so many problems. So this might be a new thing for me to keep track of. Kate, put your hair up challenge.
Okay, I look forward to the results. So as they're doing this, Locke appears out of the jungle. Our third wheel. There's three characters here, Helen. Hit the jingle. 3 characters in a scene. You know what that means. It's time for Fuck, Marry or Kill. Fuck, Marry or Kill. Oh, this might be a tricky one. Or is it an easy one? I think it's an easy fuck for Sawyer. I'm
going to fuck Sawyer, and I'm going to marry Kate, and I'm going to kill Locke.
That didn't seem hard at all. I think I'm gonna marry Locke because I think he's.
Yeah, you like marrying Locke.
I like marrying Locke. He's very useful. He's very functional. What I want in a marriage. I think I'd struggle with Kate and how much she might lie to me.
No, I'm always marrying Kate. I love to marry Kate. That was quickly dealt with. Okay, now I have a question for you about Locke.
Please.
Do you think that he was telling the truth to Sawyer and Kate when he said, "Oh, I've been looking around for like pieces of wreckage from the flight"?
Of course not. Not for a second. I guess actually he might have been looking for things to salvage, but I think he was probably looking for things to salvage in his mission to open the hatch.
He has coffee that he says that he's just found in the plane wreckage.
Unless he has the coffee at the hatch for him and Boone. Boone suspiciously absent from this episode.
Yeah, thank God. Every day without Boone is a joyous day for me at this point. I'm so sick of him and his behaviour. This doesn't happen at this point, but I'm bringing it up here because it's Locke related and relates to this sort of like slipperiness of Locke. The question about didn't the boars move away from the beach is brought up in the show as text. I think it's Charlie who says it at some point when they're having a conversation about Sawyer's.
Possibly, yeah.
And we talked before about how, you know, Locke tells the islanders the boar have moved away because they were threatened by us being here, so they've probably gone off and found a new place.
Yes.
But now a boar has shown up on the beach, proving that seemingly wrong. Is this the answer that we were looking for all along when we were like, oh, but maybe Locke was telling the truth, just happens to be convenient for his purposes?
So you think that he was lying and the boars haven't moved away?
It gives more weight to the idea that he was just lying straight out when he said that. But I am not a boar expert.
No, you're no
Much
Kate.
like Kate. So then Locke tells this incredible trauma anecdote while also making coffee, and in the middle of telling his extremely traumatic childhood anecdote, he's like, this is good. And Sawyer and Kate both have extremely appropriate reactions the whole time where they look at each other being like, this fucking weirdo, right? But it's actually a really great and relevant story that he tells. And he's like, my little sister Jeannie died when I was a boy. That's the bit where they both immediately look at each other like, what have we gotten ourselves into?
But I think this is the first time we get an acknowledgement that Locke was fostered. Because he says, my mum, my foster mum.
Yeah.
Curious to follow that up in further episodes.
I would never think of Locke in the sense of like being someone's big brother. It's really hard to imagine him as a character having like a fleshed out family life and childhood. Maybe it's the fact that he's such a spooky guy.
I actually think I've never really considered it, but I think he's got real big brother energy.
Oh yeah, I buy it, absolutely.
And I think he sort of plays that role to other people on the island. I think he would...
Just look at him and Boone.
Yeah, he would love to be someone's older brother who advises people and has more insight than they do and wants to tell you the best thing you should do. I sort of agree with you. I can't really envision him with a fleshed out family life, but that's why I think I can buy him as like a foster sibling to people. Like I think
agree
that
with
really
you.
fits with him.
I think perhaps his great unrealized purpose in life was to be a mentor. Because we see, even when he's like in his office job that we saw in the flashbacks and Walkabout, he's playing Risk with like a younger co-worker. He seems to really revel in the idea of being able to have that sort of like mature, authoritative role in relation to someone else. And we see it with a bunch of different people on the island. Like, I mean, I'm not the biggest Locke lover, but yeah, he could have had a whole different life where he got to be in a role of like mentorship and like he could have been like, I don't know, a teacher, maybe a teacher in like a adult education facility where he could have helped people get a new start in life.
I like the fact that they end that and Sawyer, or maybe Kate, one of them is like, so your sister came back as the dog. And Locke's like,
silly.
That's silly. Yeah, and he sort of once again plays this thing of he is sort of mystical and talking about vaguely supernatural stuff, but also being like, but I'm just kidding, I'm a realist. I thought it was very funny when they're talking about the boar and Kate says, maybe it likes your cologne. And Sawyer says, I don't wear cologne. And she says, yeah, you do. And I just love that it's like he's always wants to be effortlessly so cool, and he wants to pretend like I don't need cologne, this is just me. But I love that Kate sees right through it and also is not afraid to be like, come on, cut the bullshit,
call him out. Yeah, quite right. Yeah, and so I also noticed that Sawyer was using the teacups that you identified in the scene between Charlie and Claire before.
Also, when Sawyer picks up his shirt, we get a son of a. So that is a 2.5 on the son of a bitch counter for this episode.
Wait, what was the second one?
The second one was in the flashbacks.
Oh, when he's talking to the gun salesman about Hibbs?
Yes, and he says
and
he's
the gun
a son
salesman
of a bitch.
is like, "Oh yeah, I know Hibbs, nice guy," and Sawyer's like, "He's a son of a bitch."
Exactly.
I feel like that's. I mean, yeah, but it's not a classic Sawyer son of a bitch, but it'll count. Okay, fine.
Sawyer and Kate go off. They find a wallow where the boars sleep, and then they come across the piglet.
And they find the little baby boar piglet, and this is where we get Kate. I can condone racism, but I draw the line at animal cruelty.
Yeah,
Austin.
I didn't. She tells him he's sick, and I'm like, you literally played I Never last night, where you found out that he killed a man, but the thing that is sick is holding a piglet up.
To be fair, it is very cruel what he's doing to that piglet.
I couldn't even tell what he was really doing with the piglet, other than
he was trying to get it to like lure the boar to them, because
he was just sort of holding it, doing his like circle of life.
He was like shaking it around, and the boarlet was squealing, and
I believe they're called piglets.
No, I'm sticking with boarlet.
Okay.
I think it was just like by distressing the baby, you're gonna like draw attention to the mum.
Anyway, the boar comes out.
Okay, oh yeah, of course, because Kate leaves. Kate's like, I'm not going to stick around for this animal cruelty. And then the boar does arrive, and Sawyer's like, let's just stare into each other's eyes for a bit, and then we'll just resolve the storyline.
And she's watching him from the jungle, because she loves to watch people through the bushes.
Because also she loves him a bit. She's invested in seeing how this boar thing plays out.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say that she loves him, but I think she's intrigued to see how he's going to handle it. Maybe there's part of her who's like, is he really gonna do this, and wants to know if he is actually as cruel as killing a boar.
Yeah, I mean, I said that quite flippantly, that she loves him. I don't mean that she is in love with him, but I think that they do have a connection that is very different to the kind of connection she has with Jack. Sawyer referred to it in the game of I Have Never as being about like the only people on the island who don't really fit in, but I think it's more than that. They share a lot of things in common. Not only that they both killed a guy, but the way they relate to people, their history of dishonesty and like presenting false versions of themselves to other people. When she looks at him, to some degree, she sees a mirror, and that's the opposite of what she gets from Jack. She looks at Jack, and it's like she sees all her worst sides pushed back against her and used against her. When you see the scenes with her and Jack, it's not as if she doesn't like Jack. She obviously does have a real connection with Jack as well, but it's just such different in character.
Yeah, I do also wonder whether the scenes that she gets with Jack, where they actually are quote unquote friends and having fun with each other, is more where she's sort of allowed to be a normal person and like be more carefree, and sort of seems more loose and comfortable in herself at that point. But then whenever there's any conflict or anything, her negative qualities, you're right, will be pushed back at her from Jack, and he will blame things on her and bring things up about her.
Jack will give her the permission sometimes to let go of that kind of thing. Like earlier in the episode when he says to her, oh, I guess everyone will just assume the marshal was travelling on his own, and we can, that sounds like a good story. The relief and the gratitude that she feels in hearing that, it's like she's glad that he gave her that, but it's also a kind of power that he holds over her that is his to give, of being like, I can be gracious towards you in this moment, but in another moment it's the first thing I'll turn to when I want to get back at you.
Yeah, whereas with Sawyer, I think you're right that she sees it as a mirror, but I don't necessarily know if that's a completely positive thing, because I think it also allows her to be sort of drawn back into those behaviours and consider acting in those ways. And also, even if she doesn't agree with it, it's making her realise those qualities about herself and sort of have these negative thoughts about herself.
But Kate and Jack, I know a lot of people love it. For me, it's never quite right.
This is why, for me, in the great Skate versus Jate debates, I just think it's Kate by herself.
Yeah.
I feel
Kate is a lesbian, ideally. But...
I feel bad that we bring Buffy up so often, but like,
Oh, don't.
I'm who I am. This is how I feel about Buffy too. I'm like, yeah, all of Buffy's boyfriends, none of them are the correct person
Also
for
prefer her as a
I think.
lesbian.
Well, at the very least, I think her being by herself is when we see her at her strongest, and I think the same with Kate. I think neither Jack nor Sawyer actually are good for her as a character. Well, should we go to the final scene?
Sawyer has his closure with the boar. He says, "Peace be upon you, boar. I will not shoot you because I need to resolve my guilt about Thatcher Grey." The boar leaves. I'm all for that, but also the people need boar meat.
Yeah, I had this thought as well because I couldn't remember how it ended when I first watched it, and I was like, maybe he is going to kill it, and I guess that wouldn't be such a bad thing. And also, Kate does say earlier in the episode when she's hanging out over Sawyer's room with a view, she's like, "Just tell Locke, he'll kill it for you." And Sawyer's like, "No, I have to do this." And it's like, okay. But yeah, it probably would actually be useful if we do kill it. Sorry to this piglet who will no longer have a mum/dad, but...
Also good to know that there's a boar piglet running around, so we've got the next generation of meat as well.
That's true. I guess okay, here's a thought. Why didn't they capture any of the boar and try to breed them in captivity? Just keep them captive, and then you've got then generations of boar meat. Instead, they find a boar, kill one.
I think wild boars are quite difficult to domesticate and keep in captivity, just based on how big and heavy and how much power they have.
I guess you'd need quite a strong fence, wouldn't you?
I don't think necessarily they've got that level of infrastructure going on.
Fair enough. Okay, we'll allow
Glad we
it.
could sort that out. Take us to that final scene.
So Sawyer finds Jack in the jungle, and he points the gun at him, and Jack says, "Are you trying to be funny?" And he's like, "Yeah, fresh out of pies to throw at you."
Also, please note, so in this scene, Sawyer refers to Kate as Jack's girlfriend, and rather than taking the bait and getting into a whole, "Oh, she's not my girlfriend," Jack just full on doesn't react and responds as if Sawyer was talking about Kate. And I was like, oh.
But is that just because Jack doesn't want to get drawn into Sawyer's bullshit and is like, "I'm above this"?
Yeah, I think it very well could be, but I think Sawyer sees that and thinks, "Oh, I was joking. You think she is your girlfriend?" I think there's an extra layer there. And then we get the infamous, "That's why the Red Sox will never win the series" comment, at which point Sawyer's brain, the cogs start turning.
And he's like, "What did you
And he's
say?"
like, your dad? Was he, by chance, also a doctor? And who? Which this, the scene is left unresolved. Sawyer mentally files away that information of okay, so I met Jack's dad. Crazy. But he doesn't reveal it.
But it's not just that he met Jack's dad, it's that he met Jack's dad, and because Jack also tells him that his dad is dead, but he tells Sawyer that his son thinks he hates him, but he is grateful to his son, but he can't bring himself to pick up the phone and tell him.
And I thought about this scene and the way that it played out that we know Sawyer, he loves to hoard things. He finds something on the beach, he doesn't need it right now, he'll hoard it. Someone else will need it later, and they'll be willing to give him something for it. I think maybe he uses information in the same way. He's like, I have no reason at this time to share this information with Jack, but maybe I will at a future time.
Yeah, but he does consider, we see him considering what to do with it and whether to say anything before finally, because Jack says, "Why do you want to know about my dad?" And he's sort of thinking, and then he's eventually like,
no reason,
and leaves him to it. Okay, and then Jack has all the guns back, and that is the end of the episode.
Great day to be Jack. And now we circle back to what we missed.
Okay, and I think the only B plot I've got is all the Claire and Charlie stuff.
Yeah, well,
Mostly
and
Charlie.
a very tiny raft moment. We see that the raft is under construction. It's really coming along quite nicely.
Yeah, it's really coming along.
One point I'd like to make, Michael is working on the raft along with an anonymous extra who doesn't get to be on the raft. Spoiler alert. Wow, sucks to be that guy.
Okay, so Charlie
starts the episode off by very much brushing off Claire when she comes up and is like, "You want to go for a walk?"
Yeah, and when I first watched this, I was like, this doesn't track for me, because the end of the last episode, we saw the two of them sort of together, and I was
same.
Oh, are we just retconning that? What's happening? But then I do think later on in the episode, when we sort of dig a bit deeper into Charlie, it does make sense.
It's explained in the sense of, like, Charlie is struggling with his feelings after having murdered Ethan. And, like, okay, but I agree with you. I don't think that it was a grounded choice for him to be so, like, pushing Claire away at that point. Famously, he has been trying so hard to get Claire to like him. So
yeah, but I think there's sort of twofold, because there's both the element of his pushing people away, because also Saeed says to him later, you're not alone, don't pretend that you are. So I got that as a very, not to bring her up again, sort of Buffy season 6, pushing people away, not wanting to get close to people. But also that Claire is this constant reminder, like her personally, she specifically is a constant reminder of what he did, because he did it for her. And she was so entwined with Ethan that even if, as much as he has these feelings for her, she is still there reminding him of everything he did that he's trying to, like, grapple with and process, or not wanting to process. So, I feel like it made sense once it's contextualized in the episode. But yes, at the time, when it first happens, I was like, I don't quite get this. Also, I couldn't quite work out what he was building, and then was like, is that the shovel they're using for Ethan's grave? Because he was just sort of wrapping 2 bits of metal around had a piece of wire and was wrapping things up, and I was like, I don't get it.
And then, as you say, he and Hurley are digging Ethan's grave, and Charlie says, I could do it myself, you don't have to be here. But Hurley is a bro, he's helping out. He also is concerned that Ethan is going to rise from the dead. This is also, I should say, one of my partner's big theories as a first-time Lost watcher. He's like, Ethan is not staying dead. Something's gonna happen. The guy's coming back. And then it came up in the text of the show, and I think at that point he was like, okay, maybe it won't. But he said out loud, see, I said.
I actually found this sort of quite harrowing. I guess when this scene first opened, I was like, what are they carrying? Because I think he's in like a golf. It looks like he's in a golf club bag. And then his feet are sort of hanging out the top. And I thought, is that
grey hand sticking out?
Well, I was like, is it a golf club? And then when I realised it was his body, it actually shook me, like, oh god, that's his body. And then you see this like grey hand, and I actually found it quite like harrowing,
visceral, unpleasant. While they have this little grave digging time, Hurley is modelling positive masculinity, and he can tell that Charlie is not doing great, and so he says to him, are you okay, or words along those lines, and Charlie simply does not reply. Hurley goes on to talk to Saeed and says, I'm worried about Charlie. He shot a guy 4 times. He's probably going through some stuff.
Yeah, shout out to Hurley.
Could you help him? And I was like, he's doing everything right. Like, he's offering the support. When he doesn't seem to be let in, he goes to someone else who can help him to offer the right kind of support. Just shout out to Hurley in this app doing amazing things.
But I want to talk about it. So he when he sees Saeed, he's like, have you got that Gulf War syndrome? And Saeed is like, that was the other side. And Hurley just says, oh, right. And although I sort of hate that it's like this running theme that Hurley is ignorant, because this isn't the first time, or maybe even the second time, that Hurley has come to talk to Saeed about his time in the war, and Saeed has to sort of remind him that, I'm from Iraq, you were fighting against me. And although it's sort of annoying that he is portrayed as like being ignorant, I like both of their responses to this. I like the fact that Saeed just takes it on the chin as like, that was the other side, it wasn't me. But I respect that Hurley's response is just like, oh yeah, okay, well, anyway, this thing. And he's
actually trying to talk to you about PTSD.
Yeah,
which
and he doesn't take it as, that was the other side. Oh my god, we were fighting against you, you're the villain in this piece.
Both of them are the kind of people who prioritize like seeing the other person and meeting the other person where they are rather than scoring points in a discussion. So
good for both of them.
Love them both, obviously.
So anyway, so then we see Saeed having his chat with Charlie, and Charlie tries to like brush it off and is like, I don't feel guilty, I would do it. And Saeed actually tells this really great story. It's
great how both Saeed and Locke have extremely relevant anecdotes to share during this episode. I thought it was a really interesting scene between Saeed and Charlie. It's the second time that Charlie says about Ethan he deserved to die. He said it previously
to Jack.
To Jack when he had just shot him and he was being called out on why did you shoot him, and he said he deserved to die. I forgot to bring it up then, but obviously this is a Lord of the Rings reference when Frodo encounters Gollum for the first time and he's talking to Gandalf and saying, why did Bilbo show pity to him? And Gandalf basically says, many that live deserve death, and some that die deserve life. Can you give it to them? Then do not be too eager to deal out death in judgment, for even the very wise cannot see all ends. And it's basically, I think it's very applicable to Frodo in that moment. But also to Charlie, like, yes, he deserved to die, but, like, we can't just all go around killing each other every time someone does a bad thing. Once again, brings us back to the immediacy of death through gun violence. And it's also what's addressed directly in this episode, the trauma that creates for the person who makes a snap decision and ends someone's life. I mean, we talked about this at length last time, so I won't get into it too much, but I think they could all afford to have a bit more respect for the seriousness of what they're doing when they're, like, wielding guns. And they're doing it, like, you know, Sawyer aims a gun at Jack in this episode as a joke, and I'm just like, oh, it hurts to watch.
But that's why I think this episode is quite good. And it's interesting coming off the back of last week where we did talk about this quite a lot. Because I do think this episode did more than I remembered it doing with dealing with the consequences of that and what it means. And I think it's interesting that although Charlie and Saeed are having this conversation about, like, not regretting it and not feeling guilt about it, but it's paired with the story of Sawyer, who I think we do see some regret and guilt from Sawyer, and it's haunting him in a way that, like, I shouldn't have done that because he killed the wrong person.
Yeah, no, it's like he's not in the same boat as Charlie and Saeed, but the storylines are still very much woven together. Saeed's kind of emotional support to Charlie is quite limited, I think, because Charlie does listen and take in what he's saying, and then he's like, all right, any suggestions? And all Saeed really says is, you're not alone, don't pretend to be. Which is kind of like, it's very much a response in the style of, just let me know if there's anything I can do. It's like, you know, if you feel bad, then talk to someone about it, I guess. But he's talking to you now, so, you know, support him. I don't know.
Yeah, I think
not
you're
100%
right.
Positive masculinity points for Saeed. He gets some, but not as many as Hurley.
I mean, also, I don't think Saeed and Charlie have spent that much time together. So, like, it might feel a bit more awkward, but then maybe this could have been an opportunity for them to get to know each other better. Like, we're still seeing connections being forged on the... Like, Saeed's only recently started spending time with Shannon, so why not spend some time with Charlie?
But now Charlie immediately feels better from this discussion. So now he goes back up to Claire and says, how about that walk? And they start to chat and have a nice time together.
Yeah, which I'm glad to see.
End of episode. Connor's Corner?
To Connor's Corner. We've got a really quick Connor's Corner this week.
If you want aviation or medical information, welcome to Connor's Corner.
He only had thoughts about one scene, which is when Sawyer goes to get his gun from the ship and the little workshop on the dock. Mostly what was on these shelves all around before Sawyer gets into the workshop, just like on the dock, all the shelves, apparently just full of ship toilets.
Huh. Maybe he keeps his guns in the packaging for ship toilets. That's fun.
Yeah, that's everything, I'm afraid. Very little.
Hot ranking?
Yes.
Hot can be physical, hot can be emotional. Hot is whatever we decide, and everyone's attractive, but who's top of the ranking? Who's the hottest one on this island?
An easy choice for me this week.
Oh, please tell.
It's Sawyer.
Oh, that's fun. I mean, Sawyer got a lot of screen time, but I didn't often feel that he was looking hot. I think his hair's in a really weird place at the moment, where it's not really working for me. I initially was going to say Kate, because she's looking great in the app. But then I realised she's already top of the hot ranking, so I wouldn't be exercising any influence by doing that. And I think... I'm going to take this opportunity to shout out Hurley for his portrayal of positive masculinity and say that was emotionally hot.
Okay, that's good. I will buy that.
So I suggest...
I think Sawyer goes to the top.
Sawyer goes to the top and Hurley goes to just above Charlie? Or is that too many spaces on a vibes-based level? Let's try and be consistent and put him above Charlie.
Okay. That is everything. That's the episode. We're all done. don't forget, everyone, you can follow us on socials. We're on Instagram at Dharma Fish Biscuits Pod, and we're on TikTok at Dharma Fish Biscuits. If you have any Lost-related questions or comments or feedback, or if you want to weigh in on Sawyer's voting habits, you can email us directly at dharmafishbiscuitspod@gmail.com.
You can also, of course, leave us a review on the podcast place whereupon you are listening to the episode. We love 5 stars. We love little comments about what you like about our podcast. Thank you.
Our next episode will be out in 2 weeks. We will be discussing episode 17, ... in translation.
Get it? Get it?
It's a funny pun. I actually sort of wish they had just called it Lost in Translation, or
simply in translation without the ... to... It's a bit too much nudge and a wink.
Yeah, they do this again with ...
and found.
And found, yeah. Anyway.
They live to hurt us.
Well, we'll be discussing everything about that in 2 weeks' time. And until then, I will see you in another life, Helen.
I'll see you in another life, brother.